Okay, so good evening. I hope everybody can hear me. So I think Ashish has already given me a very kind introduction. Um, and thanks a lot, Ashish, for having me here and part of this community. I must say that I've also been part of a mindfulness community myself. I actually met the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, I think almost 10 years back when he last visited India, and he was some 82 years old. And I was fortunate enough to do a retreat, a mindfulness 5-day retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him. He's actually the authority of mindfulness. And that's when I really I learned that, initially before that, I always thought that meditation is a very esoteric thing. It's for somebody else. I cannot do it. I always thought it was a very, very challenging thing, and I never got into it. But it's only after I attended the Zen Masters retreat that I realized that, it's meditation is about everything, every mundane activity, whether it's chopping vegetables, whether it's, driving your car. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go up to the mountain tops and sit and meditate. You can do it in any everyday activity, even eating. Even I remember we did something called the apple eating meditation, where we actually sat for an hour and we really sort of ate that apple very mindfully, and it was such a transformative experience. So anyway, that's my experience of mindfulness, and I still am part of another group, which is Thich Nhat Hanh's group, and we meet like once a month over there. And so today, I think Ashish has already introduced me, so I won't go there, but I will just share a few points of philosophy, of the Louise Hay philosophy. I'm sure many of you have heard the book. You may not have read it, but it's one of those epic kind of books which everybody has seen or heard of, or maybe read in parts. Like I think somebody said, I've read it in parts. And it's been, I think, in this category, it's been the bestseller for many, many years, and I don't know how, 28 languages, etc., etc. So Louise Hay herself was a very, very remarkable woman. She challenged a lot in her life. She had a very, very difficult childhood. She had an abusive, battered kind of childhood, very poor, and how she rose above that and how she healed herself. And finally, she wrote more than 100 books. She died at the age of 92 after having healed herself of a very, very fatal cancer, which she contracted at the age of 40. And how using these practices, she healed herself, and she died at the age of 92, 93, just a couple of years back. So that was really her journey, and what she's left behind is a legacy for all of us, all of us teachers around the world who are teaching a philosophy now. And it's really a privilege to be doing this. I think my life, like Ashish said, he shared his experience, and therefore so many of us who've encountered this philosophy, our lives have changed dramatically in many, many areas, not just in terms of one area. It's every area: health, relationships, abundance, money, finding your life purpose, you name it, So, and it's really simple. The philosophy is very simple, and I'm going to share some of the points with you. You may be already aware of it, so please bear with me. So the single most important point of philosophy of Louise Hay is that your thoughts create your reality. If you actually get only that one point today, in this entire next 45, 50 minutes, that is enough. That's really enough. Even if you don't get anything else from this conversation or from this, what I'm sharing with you, just this one much is enough, that your thoughts create your reality. What you give out, you get back. So very simply, it's very simple to understand. It's a very simple philosophy. And that's why maybe people think, because it's so simple, how can it work? Okay, but it's simple, but very, very profound and powerful. And that's, I think all of us have discovered that, who've practiced her work and, seen the changes in our lives. So it's really like anything that we're going through in life right now, at any level. It could be health, it could be relationships, money, work, any issue, any challenge that you're facing right now in your life is actually a culmination of your own thought patterns and your own beliefs. Okay, so therefore, another way of saying it is that all the experiences that we're going through are a creation of our own thoughts and our own beliefs. Okay, so while this may sound very scary, it's not about blaming ourselves. It's not about, oh my God, it's all my fault. So it's not really about blame. It's more about taking responsibility. So we've got to see it from that perspective. It's actually taking responsibility of our thoughts, what we are putting out there, because what we put out, we get back. So anything that we're putting out there, a thought, intention, goes out into the universe, and it actually comes back to us, sometimes even multiplied. So, we have to be very, very mindful, and that's a term that's very familiar. We have to be very mindful and vigilant of our thoughts, because ultimately what we're putting out there is going to come back to us sooner than later, sometimes in not very pleasant ways. And again, the idea is not to scare ourselves. It's really about taking responsibility. That's my thoughts that are creating my life. They're creating my experiences. So I better be mindful about what I'm thinking and putting out there, because that's what I'm getting back. So I'm not saying that all thoughts are negative. Sometimes, some thoughts are positive and they may bring us positive experiences. So it's just the awareness is really important, that what we're putting out there, we're getting back in some form or the other. So, and ultimately, we are the thinkers in our own mind. Nobody has any power over us. It's really, the power is within us. So we have the power to be aware of what's happening with our thoughts and also to change it. Okay, so that's the basic fundamental point of philosophy, and that's the most important one. Everything sort of revolves around that. The next point is, you must have heard of something called beliefs. Okay, what beliefs means is very simply what we believe. Okay, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about different aspects of our life. Things like marriage, health, work, religion, sex. We all have beliefs about all these various things. Strangely, a lot of these beliefs that we have about ourselves and about our lives are actually picked up at a very, very early age, which again, some of you may be aware of if you've been in this work and read this book. And at a very early age, as early as 4 or 5, we pick up these beliefs, because, children are as kids, we are very, very impressionable. We are like sponges, we're just absorbing everything. So we absorb a lot of things around us in terms of messages, in terms of, it could be non-verbal and verbal messages, things that we hear our parents say, or what we hear our teachers or anybody who's older than us who we look up to, we pick up messages from them. Okay, and then over a period of time, even as adults, very unconsciously, we are actually carrying those subconscious messages, and those are our beliefs. There could be bad beliefs and there could be good beliefs. Okay, there could be very positive beliefs also. So I'm not saying that all beliefs are limiting, but we need to once again be mindful about what those limiting beliefs are, which are actually creating experiences for us which are not which are not serving us well. Okay, so for example, I'll just share a few examples of beliefs which maybe I held, or a lot of people who I interact with, a lot of my workshop participants, they talk about it. Things which are said very randomly to us when we're growing up, but they become like a belief. Okay, nobody really put that belief in our mind, like nobody taught it to us, but we just picked it up, because sometimes if a thing is being said over and over again, or if you see something happening over and over again, you pick it up and make it a belief. It's like, you may have heard people say that, relationships are very difficult. Sometimes parents talk like this, or elder people talk like this when you're kids, or life is very difficult. Relationships are very tough. So, like over a period of time, hearing a lot of these things again and again, these messages, they become your truths, they become your beliefs. And therefore, that's the lens through which you're looking at life. So therefore, if that is your belief, then chances are that what you attract in your life, the experiences and the people you attract in your life will actually reflect that belief. So if you keep saying that relationships are very difficult, life is tough, life is a struggle, and this happens very unconsciously, because it's been fed into our mind. It's almost like a program which is running in our mind, so it's like a automatic program until we become, of course, aware of it. So the more and more we repeat these beliefs, either verbally or in our minds, they become true for us. They become live in our life. So they start acting out in our lives. So if we keep saying relationships are very difficult, then chances are, if that's your belief, then you will attract relationships in your life which may be challenging and which may be difficult, because that's your belief, right? Whereas, a belief like, I'm likable, or I'm lovable and everybody loves me, or, I send out positive vibes. So something like that, brings you, if that's your belief, then that brings you positive experiences. Another very common belief, which I picked up from, a lot of people who I interacted with is, men don't cry or boys don't cry. So this is something, again, as a little kid, we may have picked up, especially the men in the group, that, men don't cry. Oh, big boys don't cry, stuff like that, which parents would say to console us or just sort of keep us down. And that actually, that belief held over a period of time as an adult also can actually really contract you emotionally, because, then you're scared of expressing yourself emotionally, or even, crying if there's grief or something, and you bottle up a lot of emotions, and which is not a great idea, because bottling up those emotions will actually, in the long run, it will have a damaging impact on you in terms of not just your emotional health, but more importantly, your physical health as well. If you keep emotions bottled up, just because you have this belief that men don't cry, and, that men are not expressive or demonstrative, that was a belief. Or, another very common belief is, and I'm just rattling it off, whatever I can think of, is that, women don't handle money very well. So that's again a belief which you may have picked up, your mother or some of the other women in the family saying that, this is all a man's job and women are not good at handling finances. So that becomes your belief. So you'll never be able to be, as a woman, you will not be able to handle finance properly, because that's the belief. And the most damaging one, which I'm going to share with you right now, which is a belief that even I suffered from for a very, very long time, until I became aware and until I started doing this work, teaching it and working on myself as well. And I think that's a belief which I would say almost 80-90% of us have. And that's my experience, which is, I'm not good enough, or I'm not deserving enough. Now, we may not say it, but we can even feel it. So it doesn't have to be said like that, but it's also a feeling. And I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me that this is a very common belief. I don't know how many of you can put your hand on your hearts and say, this is the belief I have. I can say that. And I can even say, even now, every now and then also, sometimes this belief comes up and, I doubt myself, I doubt my capacity, I doubt my ability. And sometimes I tell myself, who am I to be teaching this work? I'm so screwed up myself. So, it's really about, it comes from there, and I know where it's coming from. But of course, now I have I know the tools and the practices to use to overcome this belief. And that's a very damaging belief, because it comes in the way of everything, because you don't feel good enough, because you don't feel deserving enough, you feel that you don't deserve any good in life. So therefore, you end up blocking any good from in your life, whether it's in terms of money or health or whatever, because, you feel you're not worthy enough of any good. So that becomes a real block in manifesting anything in your life. So we really need to, question what our beliefs are. So become aware of them. And then in the 2-day workshop and the other workshops that I do, we then work on dissolving those beliefs. So it's not just important to be aware of those beliefs, but also to work on them and dissolve them. And that we do that by using positive affirmations, which you may have heard of it. I will explain to you in a bit. So, that this is actually the fundamental thing about, when I do workshops, it's really identifying what our beliefs are, because that is what is creating the mess in our lives. These hard held and long held beliefs, and they're like I said, they're programs running in your life, and they, all the drama that's happening in your life is actually a reflection of what you're believing and what your thoughts are. And there are many kind of damaging beliefs, like, like I said, I'm not good enough is a very, very big one. Women don't handle money well. I remember there was this belief, which may not be true right now, but it used to be a belief earlier, that, artists and people in that kind of space, don't earn any money, that artists are very poor, so there was this belief. So especially we grew up in families which wanted us to have secure jobs, which were, government jobs, there was security, and they would say, no, you can't do art, or you can't study art because, artists don't earn any money. So, those kind of beliefs. So, which can be very limiting. In the health area, a lot of times I hear people say, heart disease runs in my family, or XYZ disease runs in my family. Because, you've heard this, you've heard adults saying it, and it becomes your belief, and then it's running your health, in the sense that, you ultimately you may end up even inviting that particular illness in your life, because you're so, it's your belief that this particular disease is in my genes. So there are various kind of beliefs, and these are very unconsciously said words or messages, sometimes not even said, sometimes they're just some things you pick up, some vibes you pick up, and that becomes your belief. Okay, so it's really important for us to question our beliefs. And then the next one is linked to this, that our childhood experiences replay in our lives. What that very simply means, especially in the area of relationships, is that whatever relationships we are going through in our lives right now, okay, good, bad, ugly, whatever they are, they're actually, they mirror and they reflect some of the key relationships that we had when we were growing up. It could be our relationships with our mother or father, or it could be even our relationship with maybe an older sibling. It could be our relationship, or it could be the relationship between our father and mother. So, you know, all these relationships, somewhere you will find that in your key relationships right now as adults, there will be some similarities, there'll be some reflection, there'll be, you know, there will be some connection over them. For example, I don't know how many of you, sometimes you can think about it right now, that sometimes, you know, I've heard a lot of people saying that when I discuss this, that how our childhood, you know, relationships and our experiences, they are replaying right now in our lives, in our current relationships. For example, you may find that, you know, your boss reminds you maybe of your mother or your father. You know, if you had a very authoritarian father, or somebody who was, you know, very sort of, what can I say, not very patient and demanding or whatever. And so therefore, sometimes you'll find that, or you may even find that your spouse reminds you of, you know, either of your parents. You know, sometimes a lot of women say that, you know, you're right, my husband has a lot of traits of what my father had. And that happens at a very subconscious level, because growing up, we feel, well, this is the ideal man, or, you know, like we look up to our father, and therefore, you know, we think the qualities that he embodies are really what it's about. And because that's our, you know, our sort of internal mindset about what, you know, a husband is like or whatever, then very subconsciously we end up attracting men in our lives who actually reflect a lot of, you know, what one of your parents was. And it's true. I know it sounds a little weird, but it's actually true. That a lot of your key relationships, if you think about it, you know, you can reflect about it later also. Do they remind you of any relationship that you had with your parents, or your parents had between yourselves? Or, you know, growing up, if you saw a particular relationship between your mother and father, which was of a particular nature, maybe it was not an equal relationship, maybe you know, the wife was submissive, and that was a belief that, you know, wives have to be submissive and they have to obey, you know, like in our parents' generation, a lot of that used to happen. And a lot of women used to say that it's better to just keep quiet and to be submissive and not really express, you know, what's in your heart. And they thought that that was a good way to survive. So, you know, if we saw that subconsciously and we thought this is what marriages are all about, this is how a wife is supposed to be, then we end up recreating that in our adult lives as well. Okay, so this is actually a very deep issue, and I'm sharing it in this forum because I want you to have some understanding, but it takes a little while to absorb these you know, these points, because these are pretty deep. Also, you know, like one of the very fundamental things about the Louise philosophy, which you must have heard, is, you know, that we need to love and accept ourselves just the way we are. And you must have heard that very often nowadays, not just Louise, a lot of people are talking about. Of course, she was the founder of this concept, and at that point in time, it was quite revolutionary to say that, you know, I love myself, because it was loving yourself was considered egoistical, or, you know, you were looked at that, you know, you're a very vain person, you're arrogant, you know, like a lot of times, even now, when you say that I love and accept myself, people will look at you and say, oh my God, you know, that's a big ego. But actually, it's not about ego. It's about complete acceptance of how you are and the way you are, and being okay with the way you are. And there's no need to be perfect. Okay. So this, and her, I think her most sort of key pillar of a philosophy is loving and accepting yourself just the way you are. So, but however, if our parents did not know how to love and accept themselves, because nobody else taught them, then how would they teach us how to love and accept ourselves? And it's not their fault. You know, our parents also were doing the best that they could with the understanding and the awareness they had, and that's perfectly okay. Okay, they could not teach us something that they didn't know themselves, but it's up to us now to really, you know, find that acceptance within ourselves. And I think a lot of people struggle with loving and accepting the way they are. And that becomes a big problem, because that again becomes a block in our lives. Because if we're not loving and accepting of ourselves, then we can't really expect other people also to love and accept ourselves. Because, like I said, life is a mirror, that whatever you put out, you get back. So if you're not loving and accepting of yourself, how can you expect anybody else to love and accept you? So this is again, a thought I want to leave you with. And of course, if you're later interested, you can always join up for any of my workshops. But this is really the most fundamental thing that I have learned, and which has, transformed my life. Ashish, Ruchi is there. She's also part of the group. Karuna is there. A few other people who've been through my workshops are there. Shefalika, I think, is there. So, and they will vouch for, how this whole thing works. I'll come back to this whole loving and accepting yourself, in a while. And like I said, like, we are the thinker of in our own minds. So it's up to us to be vigilant and mindful about how we're thinking, and to really make an effort to change that thought. Whenever we think, if we become aware and we think that our mind is thinking negative thoughts, that, life is difficult, relationships are tough, I hate my job, there are lots of things we say very unconsciously, and these are actually all negative affirmations. My job sucks. I see a lot of young people using this word, my job sucks. I hate my boss. So these are said very randomly, these things, but actually they're repeated so often with so much of intensity and with so much of energy, that they actually sort of, they create those kind of experiences for us. So therefore, if I keep saying that I hate my boss, or my job is terrible, what happens is that you keep repeating it. And therefore, even if you change a job and you get a new boss, you will surely have problems with that boss also, because that's something that you're putting out there, that, I hate my boss. So therefore, we have to be very mindful about even the random things we say. And the point of the power is always in the present moment. And as a group, you would know best about the present moment, because mindfulness is all about this moment. This moment is a perfect moment. So therefore, anytime we find our mind reaching out or thinking something, which is a limiting thought, which we feel may bring us negative or unpleasant experiences, the idea is to just even stop midway and try and change that negative thought into a more nourishing, fulfilling, or more empowering thought. And that's what we call an affirmation. Anything that we want to create in our lives, okay, is an affirmation. So that's the thing that you have to be very, very mindful, and the mind has been trained like that. Okay, so it's not going to happen overnight, but it's again a mindfulness, it's an awareness technique, that always be mindful of your thoughts, because ultimately your thoughts are creating your reality. Okay, so what do you want to create? If you want to create a wonderful life, then you have to even look at your thoughts and see how you can gently change them, looking for more positive thoughts and more uplifting thoughts. So ultimately, it's only a thought, and a thought can be changed, but it's really up to you. It's a discipline. It's the awareness that you put over there. Okay, and our thoughts are creative. It's not one, you don't have to be scared about one random negative thought you think. But like I said, when the same thought is repeated over and over and over again, then it becomes a very, very, it becomes a pattern then. Okay, and then that pattern starts, defining our lives. It starts, really running our life. So that's what we need to be careful about. It's not one random thought. It's like a repetition. And that actually a lot of people, a lot of scientists and a lot of doctors also are talking about something called neuroplasticity. That when a thought is repeated over and over again, it creates like new pathways in your brain. Okay. So therefore, we want to avoid that, to happen. And we can actually create new pathways as well by doing new affirmations or new thinking over and over again. You can actually create new pathways in your brain structure. Okay, so it's really, the affirmations actually work at a very scientific level. It's not mumbo jumbo like a lot of people think. Oh my God, this is all very airy fairy, and a lot of people just think affirmations are, how can I change my life by saying something? But these affirmations create new thought patterns and create new beliefs, and that's how you create a new life. That's how it works. The other very key thing about the Louise Hay philosophy is the mind-body connection. Okay, so therefore, any physical issue that we're going through right now, any physical condition, disease, anything that we're going through, from a common cold all the way up to a cancer and the whole gamut of illnesses in between, it's actually a culmination of our own thought patterns, okay, and our own beliefs. So sometimes people don't like to hear that because they feel that, oh, that I have to take the blame. So again, it's not about blame. It's about taking responsibility for your health. That I can change my health situation by changing my own thought patterns and my own beliefs. So it's really empowering rather than putting guilt or blame on yourself. Okay. So for example, let me just give you some examples. So therefore, again, thought patterns over a period of years, they create these kind of illnesses in our bodies, in our physical body. So it's really that each and every cell and organ of our body is actually responding to each and every thought that we think and each and every word that we're speaking. So again, being very mindful about what we're putting out there, because at a physical level also, it is affecting our physical health. For example, a disease like cancer, which is the extreme, it's been proven and it's been scientifically researched. And even I think Louise herself, her experience was that resentment, and a feeling of unforgiveness, which is carried over a period of years, a very long time, creates tumors in our body, which ultimately become malignant. So actually cancer is long-held resentment and unforgiveness at some level, which has been festering inside you, which actually turns into tumors. And it's actually there's a lot of medical research also being done around it. That's one example. Then, simple things like your back. A lot of people have problems with their spine, with their lower back, middle back. And being a yoga teacher, I know a lot of people come with issues, especially with the lower back. Now, what is the back? The back symbolizes our life support system. Okay. So it's really supporting our whole body, our whole life, the spine. So whenever in life, when we're feeling not supported, when we're feeling insecure, when we're feeling unsafe, you will find that it will reflect in some area of your spine. Okay. So usually the lower back has to do with a certain amount of financial insecurity. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. Financial insecurity is not about whether you have less money or more money. It's really your relationship with money. You may have a lot of money, but you may still feel insecure about it. You may still want to hoard it. You still may not want to share it. So there is this strange relationship, with money. So the middle of the back is to do with guilt and, something over there that you've left behind. The upper back is to do with emotional security, when you don't feel supported by a partner or somebody close to you or your spouse, it does reflect in the upper part of your back. And a lot of times, 95% of the times, these things are true for most people. So therefore, any physical condition is not there just randomly. It's not there just by chance. It is related to some emotional or mental pattern that you're holding. And we need to recognize that pattern. And after that, release that pattern by doing positive affirmations, doing visualizations. And there are a whole lot of other techniques that, that I teach to let go of these patterns and to really create a new paradigm for yourself. So I'm just going to quickly finish off, because once I get started, I also get a little carried away with this content because I love teaching it. Okay, then the next very big one is forgiveness, which you must have heard about. And like I said, I just told you about cancer comes from a state of unforgiveness. And that's how important forgiveness is, that until, whenever in life you're feeling stuck in any area of your life, it could be health, it could be relationships, it could be money, anything. And it's a very, very major challenge. Just think and go within yourself and ask yourself very honestly that who or what in my life am I not forgiving? Okay. And you'll find your answer over there. So we create a lot of blocks and barriers and roadblocks in our life because of, a state of unforgiveness. And when I say forgiveness, the context of forgiveness over here is different. It's really not about, forgiveness is not about the other person. Here, the forgiveness is more about ourselves. That's the whole perspective of forgiveness, that it's a gift to myself. It's to free my own self, that the fact that, we carry so much of this baggage of the past, so many hurts and resentments over years, we keep carrying it. And who is it hurting? It's hurting us because, we don't have a peace of mind. we can never experience joy in our life, because there's this big burden that we're carrying, this burden of unforgiveness. So ultimately, forgiveness has to be viewed as a gift to my own self. It's something that I'm doing to free my own self. It's really not to do with the other person. The other person may not even know, or may not be aware also, that they have wronged you, but you are carrying this crap around you. Okay, so it's up to us to let go of that stuff that we're carrying. And again, we have a lot of techniques that we use. And this is a very, very important one, because until you get past forgiveness, you'll find that be some area in your life where you feel stuck, and you have stuck all the time in that area. So we do a lot of work on forgiveness in the 2-day workshop, and I do smaller half-day workshops also to do with, forgiveness and other subjects. And the last one, which I touched upon before, is, the importance of loving and accepting yourself just the way you are. Okay, and that's the most important one. And it sounds very easy, and it's used very, very flippantly nowadays. Everybody talks about love yourself, and we see it also in a lot of movies. People talk about loving ourselves, and all of that. I still remember a movie I saw, Jab We Met, with Kareena Kapoor, saying, "मैं अपनी सबसे favorite हूँ," or something like that. She said, so you hear it now everywhere. Having said that, it's a lot of people ask me in workshops, it's very easy for you to say that, but how do I love myself? There are lots of beliefs about even loving ourselves. Like I touched upon earlier, that people think that you're vain, you're arrogant, there's a lot of ego. So it's none of that. Ultimately, by loving ourselves, we're doing everybody else a service. Because by loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves, we are actually in a better position to love and care for other people, our dear ones and our loved ones. Okay, so it actually, it's like it helps everybody. So it's not selfish at all. It's actually, I have this very, very, my favorite metaphor on this loving yourself and taking care of yourself. It's like a cup. If your own cup is not full, if your own vessel is not full, your own container is not full, then how are you going to serve anybody else? Right? So it's not selfish to fill your own cup first. In fact, it's a selfless act. I know it's a very dramatic thing I'm saying. It's not selfish, it's selfless. A lot of people think loving yourself is selfish, but actually you are being a better parent, you're being a better worker, you're being a better mother. In any aspect, you'll be a more giving person if you have first taken care of yourself. Like even in the aircraft, on the aeroplane, we've heard this over and over again, that, when it comes to what's that thing called, that, you have to, that safety measure, what is that you first take care of your own self. So it's really important. And again, I run a workshop which is just dedicated to how to love yourself, and there are many steps to do that. I don't know whether there's enough time, but maybe we can have, in the second session, I can take you through, if I come back again, as to the ways of loving yourself. But I can say a couple of things quickly. One is to just stop criticism. I can just tell you one or two things I'd like to leave behind with you, that just stop criticizing yourself. You don't have to be perfect. It's such a burden want to be perfect all the time. So free yourself from this whole curse of perfection, as I call it. It's really a curse. And just learn how to accept yourself without criticizing yourself. And sometimes we feel that only when we criticize ourselves will we be able to improve. But actually it's the other way around. By criticizing ourselves, what we're doing is that we are actually making our changes negative. That any pattern that we need to change, by criticizing that pattern, we're giving it so much of focus and so much of energy that we're actually making it larger than life. So it works the other way around. It's not self-improvement criticism. It's actually, it's hindering you, and it's creating that pattern and really reinforcing it you. That's one thing. And the second thing I want to leave you behind with is that try with forgiving yourself. I spoke about forgiving other people, but also very important to offer forgiveness to our own selves. Sometimes we find it easier to forgive other people, but we find it very difficult. We're very hard on ourselves. So we just need to, be kind and gentle to ourselves and forgive ourselves for anything that we may have. We may be feeling guilty about or taking blame about. And, so just think about these things, and maybe we can, talk about it at a later time. But I just wanted to share this with you. And I'm sorry I've taken a lot of time. So over to Ashish.
Oh no, Suparna, you don't have to be sorry. We are also grateful to you for giving us distilled gyan of Louis. It's such a powerful philosophy, and there are many things that you shared. I wouldn't go into each one of them, but there are one or two things I would like to share from my
Yes.
experience. The first one you mentioned is about thoughts. Observing
Yeah.
our thoughts and realizing that that is what determines our life, and we attract everything in our life basis our thoughts. And first time when I learned this and I realized, and you talked about not blaming ourselves but taking responsibility for it.
Responsibility.
So when it first time I heard this, I realized, oh shit, is it me who's responsible for all the mess in my life? I can't, that means I can't blame other people for it. Then I have to start owning up. And, one thing led to the other. And then I started taking responsibility for my life and, being mindful of my thoughts. And, one thing led to the other. And there is so much that happened because of what I learned in those 2 days. And second, you mentioned about this being sounding weird to some people. And I'm sure some people who are listening to this for the first time may find this airy-fairy or weird.
Yeah.
And my request to you is, if this is sounding weird to you, please try it out before you judge it. Because this is validated by so much of research and by so much of experience. As you can see, this book is sold over 39 million copies. So it wouldn't have sold 39 million copies if this was all airy-wairy and, all woolly stuff. This is real stuff, hardcore science. We are not going to get into the science of it. Maybe we'll have this for another time. But believe you me, try whatever Suparna has suggested. She has given a lot of powerful takeaways. I hope you have taken your notes. And Suparna, if it is okay with you, maybe we can open it up for question answers now, because I understand you have another engagement right after this. You're on mute, Suparna. You're on mute.
If you want to read out a few passages from the book, that will be nice.
Okay, sure. So we will do a little bit of reading, and then
yeah.
we will open up for question answers for the session. So I'm reading from this book, and this is the same one you see here. If it looks little soiled, because it's a 6-year-old copy which I have read and reread many times. And so there are 16 chapters in this book. We can't do all. We will do one on relationships, which is chapter number 10. And I'll start by reading out the first line. It seems all of life is relationships. The relationships you have with people all reflect the relationship you have with yourself. The relationship you have with yourself is highly influenced by the relationships you had with the adults around you as a child. The way the adults reacted to us then is often the way we react toward ourselves now, both positively and negatively. Now, reading this, Suparna, there are two very profound points which Louis is making. First of all, she says all of life is relationships. When we look at this in the current context, life seems to be all about money rather than all about relationships, because especially in view of the uncertainty because of COVID, there is a lot of people's businesses and income are under threat, so they're all worried about where my next meal or where my next income or next contract is going to come from. So is it about relationships or is it about money? That's one thing I would like to have your thoughts on. And second, she says is the relationship you have with people reflect the relationship you have with yourself. So you did talk about it, during the initial context when you said the philosophy. So if you could quickly respond to these two things, it will be nice.
Yeah, so Ashish, can you just take the slide off and maybe spotlight me? Is that possible? Yeah. Hi, so I don't know whether everybody could see me earlier, there was slide on, but anyway, it's never too late.
We could see you.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So yeah, so your first point is interesting because the last 4 or 5 months have been very challenging for most of us. It's like we keep saying there's a new normal that's happening, and we will never know life the way we knew it till now, and it'll be completely a new normal that we will be getting into. And a few of my observations, as Ashish said, that of course the financial insecurity has been quite rampant in the last few months, naturally, because people losing jobs or incomes getting cut or no work. So all of us have been challenged in the last 4 or 5 months on the financial front, and that's a reality. Having said that, there's another front which is equally important, if not more important than the finances, which is the area of relationships. And I also believe, and since I interact with a lot of people, I'm still doing a lot of online workshops, so my work is actually carried on in the last few months. And because people are at home and they're willing to get into these workshops more because it's easily accessible, they're cheaper online workshops, for many reasons, I've been able to reach out to a lot of people in the last 5 months. And the other thing which I have observed is that besides finances, the relationships are also getting compromised in the last 5 months, because all of us for the first time are stuck together at home. Okay, we've never been home together as families so much before. Everybody had work to do, the kids were out to school, everybody is out to work, but now we find ourselves, all of us families, locked in together. Now that could be good and bad. In some cases it's great because people say that people report that there's a lot of family bonding, we're doing lots of stuff together, we're cooking together, we're playing board games, so that's happening. On the other side, if you must have read in the newspapers that the incidence of domestic violence has increased in the last 5 months, and that's a reality too. Okay, so therefore people are also finding it difficult to be in the same space all the time with each other. So a lot of the patterns that used to irritate us about our spouse or somebody close to us, especially with living in a larger family situation, it actually gets magnified. And that is creating a lot of stress, a lot of emotional stress. And I think that stress is far more troublesome than the money aspect. Because, in terms of money, we've also learned how to live simply. At least I know in the last 5 months, the realization has been that I don't need so much. When I look at my clothes, I said, this is disgusting. So I've actually learned that less is more. And, we can live very happily at home simply. And so therefore I find that, of course, money has been a challenge for all of us, but I find the relationships have been even more challenging because there's nowhere to run to. There is no escape route, that you're stuck. If you're having a difficult time in your marriage, you're stuck there for 5 months and you have to deal with that shit. And I'm sorry I'm using the word dealing with the shit, but really, because sometimes what happens is we escape it, we run here, there, we try to act busy, we try and put things shove things under the carpet, but now none of that is happening. So actually relationships are either becoming stronger or even falling apart. So I feel that more than money, to my mind, in the last 5 months, a lot of relationships have been compromised and challenged because we're in close proximity and the tolerance, the patience, everything's being tested. So yeah, I don't know whether that makes sense, but that's my observation.
It does. It definitely does, and it gives a very interesting perspective. So far.
Yeah.
And and as I read the next passage, this will kind of bring out the same aspect that you're talking about. And it says, and I'm reading from the book, relationships are mirrors of ourselves. What we attract always mirrors either qualities we have or beliefs we have about relationships. This is true whether it is a boss, a co-worker, an employee, a friend, a lover, a spouse, or child. The things you don't like about these people are either what you yourself do or would not do, or what you believe. You could not attract them or have them in your life if the way they are didn't somehow complement your own life. And it goes on to say, if you have a boss who is critical and impossible to please, look within Either you do that on some level, or you have a belief that bosses are always critical and impossible to please. If you have a spouse who is nagging and non-supportive, again look to your childhood beliefs. Did you have a parent who was nagging and non-supportive? Are you that way? If you have a child who has habits that irritate you, I will guarantee that they are your habits. Children learn only by imitating the adults around them. Clear it within you, and you will find that they change automatically. And this is a very powerful one. This is the only way to change others. Change yourselves first. Change your patterns, and you will find that they are different too. Blame is useless. Blaming only gives away our power. Keep your power. Without power, we cannot make changes. The helpless victim cannot see a way out. And I'll stop there, Suparna. I'd like to hear your thoughts. There are two very powerful messages which Louis is giving us here. Relationships are mirrors of ourselves. And second is, this is the only way to change others is to change ourselves first.
Yeah. So I think it's quite what you shared explains itself. But I'm just going to sort of give you my interpretation. Like I said, life is mirror, relationships are mirrors. Okay. And what they're mirroring is one, which I explained to you earlier, they're mirroring some belief of ours. It's like marriages are difficult, relationships are tough, life is tough. Women can't handle finances. Those are the beliefs which are actually, coming back to us. And the other thing is the relationships mirror some of our own habits and qualities, which is a little hard to accept, which is a little hard to digest, because if you're blaming somebody for being critical, or for being bossy, or for being gossipy, if you look inside, if you're really honest, somewhere we are also being like this in some aspect of our life. Okay, it may not be in that relationship, but somewhere else maybe we're being bossy or whatever. Yeah. So that is not that mirroring thing is very hard to accept for us. I just want you all to just close your eyes just for a few moments. Okay, I just want to do a quick. I hadn't planned to do it, but I just want to do a quick short exercise with you to just bring your awareness to this particular point. So just keep your eyes softly closed and just connect with your breath. Take a few gentle breaths and try and go a little inwards with each breath. With each exhalation, try and relax. And now just bring to your mind, very honestly, think of someone in your life who bothers you or who irritates you. Somebody who's a constant irritant in your life. Just the first person who comes to your mind, don't overthink it. And then just think of maybe 2 to 3 things about this person that you don't like. Things that you would like him or her to change. Just whatever comes spontaneously to you without overthinking. And now try and look very deep within, really be honest and authentic with yourself, and ask yourself, where am I like that? And when do I do the same things? And that's a little hard to do, hard to accept. Just think of where do you behave like that? Just take a few moments and just try and see that where are you behaving or acting in that particular manner that you're criticizing somebody else, some habit, some quality. And then ask yourself if you're willing to change. When you remove these patterns, habits, and beliefs from your thinking and your consciousness, either that other person will change, or the other person in some cases may even exit your life. Take a few moments, and when you're ready, you can bring your awareness back to your own space. And so, yeah, you can bring your awareness back, open your eyes now. And I don't know whether it's a difficult exercise. When I first did it, it was difficult to accept that maybe something that irritates me about somebody else, maybe a quality or maybe a habit that I may be acting out in some area of my life, or it could be a belief, you may have had a belief that bosses are very authoritative, they're very, uncooperative, or, are difficult. And that again, comes in your way. So I don't know whether, does anybody want to share right now? And that would be nice if anybody wants to share anything that came up for them.
Suparna,
Yeah.
I would like to, Shifalika here.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. I have my own.
Shifalika, I can't see you. Can you spotlight her, Ashish?
She'll need to put on her video.
Yeah, I put on my video.
Yeah, that'd be nice if you can see Shifalika, yeah.
Yeah, I think this particular exercise I worked on it for a few months because I think the point was that my expectations of the person were too much. I have my own irritating habits, but they were not the same as that person. And the minute I stopped my expectations, I was a lighter person. First, my mind settled down to not expecting not only from him, but even from others. And now it has become a habit that मेरे को किसी का कुछ बुरा नहीं लगता है. So maybe that has helped me being a less irritating person in a different way.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing. That's useful. Anybody else wants to share? Okay, that's fine. As long as these concepts, very honestly, for the first time, are not very easy to digest. So you can just be with them, digest them, reflect on them. And I would really recommend that if you haven't read this book, this can be really a life transforming experience for you. It's really a wonderful book, and I can actually recommend many others to you also, some great books by her, but this is the first one, which you can pick up if you haven't read her before. It's really something that could change the course of your life. Just by reading the book itself, you'll pick up a few things. So, Ashish, anything else?
No, that's good. Suparna, the feedback that we are getting is very, very positive. People have found a lot of value in the content. Do you have time for Q&A, or are you?
Before the Q&A, I just want to announce that next Friday, I'm leading an online workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop, which is specially dedicated to relationships. Maybe Ashish can share. You must be having a group. He can share the flyer and the information with you if you're interested. It's called the Relationship Alchemy, and it's all about, like, what we shared today is just a little glimpse of what that workshop can do for you. And this workshop is not just about, a lot of times we think that when we hear relationship, we think only about romantic relationships, but it's not. The purview of this relationship is not just about romantic and personal relationships. It goes beyond that in every area. It could be work relationships, it could be friends, it could be partners, spouses, bosses, co-workers. You can use these principles anywhere and everywhere and really see how your life transforms. And let me tell you one thing, until your relationships are sorted out, you will never feel a sense of ease. There will always be this, there's something niggling feeling that you don't feel okay. It's like a open wound, which is always, sort of festering. So it's really important, like I said, even more than money. I understand that finances are important, but this kind of suffering can actually just eat into you and actually just, create a havoc in your physical health as well. So it's really important, to be doing this. So Ashish can share the details with you. If any of you are interested, you can surely join in next week.
Definitely.
next Friday.
I'm
Yeah.
sure, after this session of yours, there will be a lot of people who would be interested in knowing more about how to work with relationships and doing deep work. So I strongly recommend this workshop, which is there on the coming Friday. And a lot of people have requested us for, the information about how to stay in touch. So we have just put out a feedback form. You can just quickly fill up the feedback form. It takes less than 30 seconds for you to fill that up, and you can share your contact information there, and we'll be in touch with you for any such sessions that we plan in future. So please take 30 minutes and then fill out the feedback form, and then we will start with the Q&A.